Hello and welcome to This Is the PS6 is here.
It is?
Asterisk.
What? No, it's not.
But it's coming. It's
Okay.
We from
Next
official
year?
Sony
2023? PS6?
2027 actually. Thank you to Sony for crying and moaning about Microsoft buying Activision.
Don't take my Call of Duty.
You
I like
can't-
my Call of Duty, Mom.
Oh, I need my exclusives. So yes,
Keep on buying Gran Turismo.
sorry
now.
Sony ponies. This one's against you.
Oh, wait.
So
Does it mean we're Xbots for this video?
Oh, yeah, we are. While Sony was complaining about that in regulatory filings, they have said there will not be a new PlayStation.
If they don't get Call of Duty, they're canceling
They're canceling PlayStation. If I'm going to lose a game, I'm going to take my ball home.
The whole regulatory filings of Sony and Microsoft arguing over why they both suck has been terrific. There's so much good stuff. They're talking about why clearly Call of Duty seems like the biggest sort of touch point that Microsoft and Sony cannot agree on with this whole thing. But us as amateur internet pundits have lots to talk about. So specifically, one of the filings they filed said that the existing deal they had with Activision for Call of Duty on PlayStation would be up in 2027.
Yep.
And something to the effect of there would not be a new generation of PlayStation yet, aka they didn't want the PS6 to come out and no Call of Duty on it.
That's old news, my friend, because now we're here to talk about the PS6.
Reading between the lines here, it seems clear that Sony does not plan on launching a new PlayStation generation. Now, mind you, that's not PS5
Now,
Pro or anything
did
like
they
that.
say generation or a new PlayStation?
I think the
Because I'd like to have a philosophical debauchery with you.
debauchery is not the right
I
word.
didn't say
my friend.
debauchery. I said debauchery. It's debate. It's fancy word for debate.
Can we have fact check on that?
DEBATJUGOSI. Debauchery.
Aaron's got to spell that out now.
Yeah, he loves it. Debauchery. What does a new PlayStation mean?
So not a PS5 Pro is my strong.
Yeah, so
inclination.
not a PS5 Slim, not a
No,
PS5 Pro. So it's a
PlayStation
PS6.
6. It seems like probably at the earliest, Sony will be launching a PS6 at the end of 2027, November timeframe like you would normally expect. Although, that's at the earliest, right? Basically, this just says that they're not planning on having one, I assume, by January 1st, 2027.
We've talked in the past about consoles having a 7-year lifespan.
Yeah.
And in that 7 years, there might be 2.5 years, we start to see a Slim, and then another 2.5. After that, we start to get a Pro. But we have to kind of ignore that roadmap that we've used in the past because this generation has been so weird about we're 2 years into a life cycle of the PlayStation. A lot of people can't get their hands on it.
Correct. They've raised the price.
A fifth of the one-fifth of this generation has been affected by chip shortages.
Yeah.
So I would be surprised if we see a PS5 Pro at all, but I think they're just gonna jump right into the PS6.
I've actually got an entire video on the main channel, which you can feel free to go check out, talking about my thoughts on the PS5 Pro. I'll save that for that video, but specifically for this, right? We're talking about PS6. I have a question for you. What do we need a PlayStation 6 for? Now, before everyone comments, of course we need a new generation. I'm not saying that, right? But unlike the last generation, when the PS4 and the Xbox One came out, they were consoles that were pretty decent on the graphics side, but not particularly impressive. It was very clear that after the excesses of the PS3 and the 360, where they were throwing absolutely everything at these consoles, they're trying to make them truly the best gaming systems possible. The PS4 and the Xbox One were the basic versions. They weren't particularly impressive from a technical perspective. And the fact that we're still dealing, developers, pretty much all games today are still having to come out for the PS4 and that base Xbox One has kind of held gaming back to a degree, to the point where I don't think we've seen anywhere close to the true potential of the PS5 and the Series X yet. In 2027, what do you think is going to be the point where we're oh, the PS5 is so slow, right? Because they've got pretty powerful CPUs, maybe not quite as good, obviously CPUs have advanced a fair bit, but what do we need?
That's the thing is yeah, they're pretty powerful, but I mean, you guys know me. I'm not a PC gamer. I've been very clear about that. I love consoles. I like to just chill on the couch. I don't want to mess around with settings and whatnot. But when they came out 2 years ago, these were kind of a higher mid-range PC specs. But now we're here 2 years later, and PC games are just running circles. around some of these consoles. And like you say, a big reason is because we have to develop for a PS4, an Xbox One.
Absolutely.
And gotta talk about the chip shortage still. Like, do we think we would still even be entertaining that thought if we could get a console in everyone's hands the way we have in the past of those? Do you think we would even be entertaining that? Of
there's
I don't think we would.
There's two sides of it, right? So they've sold a lot of PS5s and they've sold a lot of Series X and Series S's, right? So I think the generation is advancing at a pretty decent rate, but there's still so many older generation games and consoles out there that almost all games are made for the PS4 and the Xbox One, and they, the graphics have been turned up on the Series X and PS5 and whatnot. The other thing to consider is the actual price of chips, right? So the PS5 has gone up in price. I would be very surprised if the Xbox does also not see some kind of price increase. This is actually something that I was actually able to talk with some of the the people who actually design the Xboxes.
Oh, name
and a
dropper.
big reason, no, this is good context, right? A big reason why they chose to do the Series S at the beginning of the generation instead of later, first of all, was just to make sure that, games would work on Series S and X, and that was kind of baked in from the beginning. But also, it's because of the chips that they use. As you shrink down the chips, they become cheaper and cheaper, right? A chip goes from here to here to here to here to here. As it gets smaller, it becomes cheaper to manufacture. You can put more on a wafer, and that's how, PS5 or PS4 Slims and Pros and everything happen. The problem is that 7nm node that they're using there is essentially the end of the line for cheaper chips. Like, the size of the chips is going to come down, which would naturally bring the price down, but the cost per square millimeter, whatever, is going up, which is essentially meaning that yes, there will be more efficient versions and slim versions, but the natural calculus that we always have in that those are going to be cheaper is not really going to be true anymore. If this was anything like last generation, right? So think about PS4, start at $400, made its way down to $300 relatively quickly. Same thing, Series X, they cut off Connect, they went from 500 to 400 to 300, and that was kind of where the generation sort of sat for a while. I don't think we can expect that. Now, there will probably be a slim model of the PS5, right? I think that's pretty safe bet.
I agree with you, and I feel like it's going to be in body only. Because I feel like we already have this, they could change the packaging of it
100%.
right now.
But the key difference there is that I don't necessarily think these other versions of the PS5 and Series X are gonna really necessarily be cheaper. We're probably never gonna see a $300 PS5 or a $300 Series X. But that brings me back to PS6, right?
Yes.
Because while, yes, of course we need new generations, right? I'm not trying to argue that a PS6 shouldn't exist. But unlike the last generation, in which we really needed those PS5, the PS4 Pro and the One X and everything, I would argue that the PS5 and the Series X are well-rounded packages enough that they will be totally fine in 2025, 2026, 2027, right? Like, I think there's no glaring weakness with these consoles that is going to make them age like sour milk in the way that the PS4 and the Xbox One did.
There's a bunch of reasons why these things soured, and it has nothing to do with the actual consoles themselves. But it was all about, all right, well, higher frame rates became popular. Going at above 60 FPS was not a big thing when the PS4 came out.
Dude, the PS3 and 360 ran so many games at below 30.
Yeah.
Like, it's easy for us to forget. Try to play Last of Us or try to play GTA 5 on a 360 or PS3, and you're talking 20 frames per second sometimes.
Let's talk about the TVs that we were using. When those came out, a 32-inch TV was pretty big.
I played the 360 on a CRT.
Right. That's
what?
That's what I'm saying. So we went from let's say 27 I think was a pretty standard size back in 2004.
4K wasn't a thing.
No. Now 55 is considered small for a lot of people. This conversation is going to change drastically in 7 years when 90 inches or 100-inch TVs are the norm. Whoa. No. You never think in the fifth dimension, Austin.
Are you trying to argue that we need a PS6 for our 100-inch TVs that we're going to be using in 2027? Is that where we're going with this?
Walk with me here for a second.
Okay, walk in, hold hands, walk down the beach.
Let's go.
Okay,
walk down.
Okay.
We walk into the new house, all right?
I smell the ocean breeze.
We have a 100-inch TV.
Uh-huh.
Suddenly 4K starts to look bad at 100 inches.
Gross.
So we need our 8K now. 8K is much more important when you're getting past 85 inches.
Yeah, I guess.
And we still want our high frame rates.
Yeah.
So when we talk about console, the PS6 and getting better, I don't think we're talking about massive graphic, detail increases. We can already render out details on these things really well and have them look really good. I think it's going to be all these quality of life improvements, because right now we have to choose between, do we want frame rate and do we want resolution? I don't think it's going to be, we can render out detail better in a PS6. I think it's going to be, we don't have to choose between detail and frame rate. The big thing with PS5 and the Xbox this year was the number one improvement had nothing to do with ray tracing or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was how fast games loaded.
Yeah, totally.
So like those are the things I think we're gonna see in new generations of consoles.
I gotta disagree with you, my friend.
Go
time.
ahead.
It's time. We were holding hands a minute ago. The moment is ruined.
Do you want to hold hands?
No, I know. I won't anymore because you've upset me, man.
What
I'm upset now. The one area where I do think
Yeah.
these consoles are going to start aging. Obviously today, 2 years on, not only is there a newer generation of AMD GPUs, there's RDNA 3 as opposed to 2, which is in the existing consoles. We've gone a couple generations ahead on the CPU. You've got NVIDIA who are out here with the RTX 4090, which obviously is a very expensive, very large card. But imagine you're going to build a brand new next generation game. Imagine you're building Star Citizen 2 with the $300 million that you've borrowed from all your wonderful backers.
Interesting choice of words.
What you would do is you would probably start developing for PS5 Series X as like your baseline. But the problem is that if you were going to say, oh, you know what, my entire game is going to be fully ray traced all the time, by 2027, when this game supposedly would ship, you would easily be able to probably do that on the RTX 6090, but you wouldn't really be able to pull that off on the existing consoles. So I do think that there is an argument to be made that we do need new consoles every 6, 7, 8 years or whatever, just to kind of reset that sort of base level. But that being said, the base level that we've got right now with the PS5 and the Series X is so good that there's not a massive need for it like there was in the past. If we continue to see 4K, we continue to see pretty decent frame rates. I mean, keep in mind that these consoles will push 120 hertz in some games, right? Mind you, not at 4K, generally speaking. But the consoles we have are great. And if we have to wait until 2027 or beyond for PS6, to me, that's totally okay. I would prefer for them to focus on a proper major upgrade than just dropping another console just to say that they can do it.
Let's talk about the thing that no one wants to talk about.
Wait, pause. What do you think Matt's talking about? Let us know in the comments. We'll pause the video, write what you think Matt's about to say. I'm going to give you some options. He's probably going to say something about cloud gaming. He's probably going to say something about a Steam Deck, or he's probably going to say something about how we're all going to have PCs implanted in our 100-inch TVs by 2027. No one wants to talk about it. What is it?
Let's talk about chip shortages. What happens when we can't keep up with demand? Demand for gaming has gotten higher.
Okay. Gamers have risen up, and they're no longer compromising.
They're no longer compromising.
Got it.
So, all right, what happens if this trend continues, when we can't get 100 million units out to the gaming population?
Oh no, I know where you're going with this, Matt. He's setting it up a straw man argument, and then he's gonna immediately knock it down and say something cloud gaming.
Yeah, because
I knew it. I knew it.
As always, I will have my disclaimer. I do not think cloud gaming is better than console gaming. I want to make that very clear.
But when we live in an apocalyptic hellscape where Sony can't make PlayStations, that's our only option.
No, the whole people forget that these are companies who are trying to make every last cent from you that they can. We saw the first year of this console generation, Sony was like hemorrhaging money,
which is not that weird for consoles because usually they're sold at a loss or break even.
But even more so because all the ones that they did sell were being sold to scalpers who are then not buying games. They're not investing money into the ecosystem. And I think Microsoft is seeing this, and that's why they're ahead of the game with cloud gaming. It is so much easier, cost-effective to set up a bunch of data centers where they can set up cloud gaming. When we have the new systems out, when we have a PS6, instead of trying to get out 100 million units to people and having to deal with, tariffs over in my country means that a PlayStation 6 is going to cost $3,700. If they set up a data center in that country, they expand their market massively and be playing PlayStation games, investing money into PlayStation, where they make all their money through the actual services. What do you think is more likely to happen? Them saying, "Oh, we have to set up all the manufacturing to do all of this and get all this out," or we can just start raking in money by turning on this service?
But here's the question: Why would it be either or? If they're gonna bring
they
out,
can do both.
They will do both. Of course, they'll do both. Like the PS6 will come out. I don't think there's a question that there will be a PlayStation 6 that is a brand new generation.
But I don't think we won't see a PS5 Slim. We're gonna see.
Wait. You think no PS5 Slim?
No.
What? Whoa, Matt. You talking crazy right now. You talking crazy. What are you smoking? What are you talking about?
I'm smoking a lot.
Okay, but obviously.
If they went through the trouble to shrink the chip right now, shrink the motherboard, and then said, let's just put it in the typical...
Because it's only 2 years in. I think they're going to wait till like halfway through the generation, so either next year or the year after, they'll bring out a PS5 Slim with probably like a 5 or 4 nanometer chip. It's probably going to be like marginally less expensive, and it'll be a little guy. Microsoft have invested the time, and importantly have have giant piles of cash they'd like to burn, and they've done that by building a bunch of data centers, which are super helpful if you want to play some cloud gaming. Sony can't compete with that. I think Sony are cloud gaming in almost name more than anything else. So technically it exists. Technically you can play PS Now or whatever, but like it's just not.
It's not good.
It's not good. So like to me, they've got to lean into two things. They got to either lean into selling you PlayStations, or they've got to lean into making PlayStation games available on other platforms such
which
as
they already
Steam.
have.
Exactly. Because like you said, none of these companies make money on the hardware, right? Microsoft have said they're straight losing money on every single Xbox they sell. But they're important because you need to own the ecosystem. You need to get that 30% on all the games that are being sold on your platform. And what they lose by not creating a PS6 and staying in the console generation fight is that, yes, they can create their own games, their own studios, and sell them on like Steam and whatnot. But then guess what? Then they're giving Valve 30% of the money instead of getting their 30% from not only the 100% of the money they get from their own studios, but also the 30% they get from selling Call of Duty and selling Madden and selling FIFA and all the other platforms. So to me, the PS6 is going to happen. I think it's going to be a while. I think 2027, maybe even 2028 is not unreasonable. But I don't think cloud gaming is going to replace it. Sony needs hardware. They can't just get out of the business. They could if they wanted to, but the PlayStation division makes them so much money.
I think that hardware, again, the way that Xbox has done it is they have all their cloud gaming is just Series X's. And so, you know, like, oh, we come out with our new hardware tomorrow instead of, again, trying to ramp up manufacturing to get out 100 million units, trying to ship these worldwide, trying to do all this stuff. They have to send 1,000 of them to this data center, 1,000 to this data center, throw them into the server, turn on the switch, and then this entire area has the most updated hardware. We have one unified system that developers can optimize for. I know you guys were to say about cloud gaming, all the latency, my data caps. This is why we're not here yet. We have AV1 encoding that's becoming popular now, which gets rid of your data caps because the data rate for AV1 is so small that you can stream all day and use like a fraction of the data. The reason I keep saying cloud gaming is the future is because, again, this is the cheapest way for them to get all these things out to the most hands possible, which is ultimately the company's goal.
I'm very excited to read the comments on this Argue Fest. We're just going to turn into cable news where Matt and I are going to argue just to help views and subscribers. But if you enjoyed this, make sure to subscribe, ring-a-ling the ding-a-ling button, and let us know in the comments below how one of us is totally right and one of us is totally wrong. I won't tell you who is who.
Let's face it, the comments are going to be that we're both wrong.
Yeah, everyone should just buy Steam decks and call it a day.
Yeah, pretty much.